If you're scared to take chances, you'll never get answers. Nas, a.k.a. Nasir Jones, said that, and I'm saying this. Welcome to High and Low. Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Basketball Show. Thank you for joining me. This is episode number 100 and Nas, a.k.a. episode number 148. Now, I'm not talking about legendary rapper Nas, a.k.a. Nasir Jones of Queensbridge, and author of the greatest hip-hop album of all time. Feel free to at me if you disagree. I'm more than happy to bury you in facts, quotables, and people in my life who have generally disappointed me with horrible opinions.
Wow.
Despite that aggressive diatribe, we're not talking about that Nas. I'm talking about Nazir Muhammad.
Who the hell is that?
Former Kentucky Wildcat and NBA center, journeyman, if you will. Nazir Muhammad played on many an NBA squad, 11 teams and 18 seasons. He wore 8 different jersey numbers. It was in Chicago from 2012 to 2015 where he wore the number 48 and would become the best player to ever wear that jersey number. He was up against some stiff competition. Walt Gilmore, who wore the number in his one NBA season in 1971, where he averaged 2 points a game. There are rumors that Nazir Muhammad picked the number for that very reason. You know, how many of us can say we are the best player to ever wear a certain NBA jersey number? Not too many. Anyway, my name is Ike Amaechi, and around here we live by a principle governed by the high and low lives of the world, which means we talk about hoops, basketball, especially and specifically the NBA, and we talk about it at any time, anywhere, north, south, east, west, high, and low. This week on the show, I'm back on Love Hate Island, where I'll share what I love and hate about the NBA right now. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. We also have a question from a listener, a great question from a listener, plus a little NBA history as per usual. Stay tuned for all that. Before we lock in, let's check in though. Last week, I introduced Mal 9000. I introduced her to high and low contributors Mitch Orsatti, Stephen Leslie, and Sean Kahn. Now, Mitch and Stephen were very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. I mean, it made me uncomfortable how uncomfortable they were. If you missed the episode, Mal is our resident high and low AI contributor. Yes, an AI podcaster, first of her kind. She chimed in a few times last week, but there was some tension in the air. You know, maybe it was the threat of being replaced like so many jobs in today's market, or perhaps it was the ominous nature of my introduction. I did say she would eventually destroy us all, so that's my fault. That's on me. Anyway, this week Mal is here. They are not, so maybe they did have a reason to feel uneasy. Anyway, Mal, are you joining me on Love Hate Island today?
As an AI language model-based voice chatbot, I do not have personal opinions or biases, and my responses are based solely on available data and information. I would not be able to express opinions on what I love and hate on Love Hate Island.
Okay, that is fine. I will bask in my opinions on Love Hate Island on my own, on my lonesome. But feel free to jump in at any time because I know you are listening. I know you're always listening, Mal. Just like the others. I don't want to say their names and set off a listener's phone. Anyway, listeners, thank you for joining me for yet another installment of the program. Another week, another episode, more NBA. So, of course, more high and low. This week in NBA history, we saw the rise of 33. On March 20th, 1990, the Lakers of Los Angeles retired Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's number 33 jersey in honor of the 6-time MVP, 6-time NBA champ, 19-time All-Star. If you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about Kareem, arguably the third greatest player of all time behind LeBron James and the GOAT, Michael Jordan. What you might not have heard me talk about is this robbery from a few years back. Apparently, NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was robbed of his championship rings, his 3 MVP trophies, It didn't happen at gunpoint. Didn't happen at knife point. This ninja gave these things away for $2.8 million.
Get the fuck out of here.
$2.8 million to support a youth education program. That means the youth in that program were robbed too, because there's no way all that hardware is worth $2.8 million. I don't know who advised Kareem, but someone was misinformed about the valuation of said items. I get it. Kareem was not tied down by the material things of his world. He's altruistic and philanthropic and philosophical and all those things, but he should have been intelligent. Let's use that adjective.
Who are you talking to right now?
Let me take it easy. Okay, I'm no expert, but I can count. Wayne Gretzky, inarguably the greatest hockey player of all time, undisputed. Now, his 1979 rookie card was sold for $3.75. Okay, $3.75 million, and that was in 2021. And that was a private purchase fueled by an emotional attachment to the player and the nostalgia. So how is it possible that one of those rings, one of those MVP trophies, couldn't sell for at least half of what a piece of cardboard sold for 2 years ago? Okay, well, I guess it's not a piece of cardboard. Don't come at me, please. I know the value. I know people love trading cards. Anyway, this is why I have declared this a crime, a robbery. Kareem and the kids were finessed. That's at least $7 million, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a little something for the NBA history nerds. Things are certainly happening in the NBA today, so let's talk about it.
Let's talk about something important.
We have a question from a listener. This is from Schemes in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Shout out to my folk in Philly. If you could redraft one player for any team in the last 5 NBA drafts, who would it be? First of all, Schemes, amazing question. This one is easy. Luka Doncic in 2018. Now, listen, Atlanta, they effed up and swapped Luka for Trae Young. But let's be honest, Luka should have been number 1, if not number 2. He shouldn't have made it to Atlanta's pick at number 3. Now, I was scratching my head when Ayton went number 1. And I definitely lost my mind when Sacramento chose Marvin Bagley the third at number 2. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, most analysts knew Luka was the best player in the draft, and yet Phoenix couldn't see him next to Booker. Now, I'll give it to them. They picked the player they thought would fit the roster best, and Ayton's been a solid piece of a contending team, but he's not the number 1 guy, which is what they passed up when they passed up on Luka. They've had success since then, so I'll give them a pass. Sacramento now. Well, listen, Sacramento's winning this year, but imagine where they would be if Luka was at the center of that team. They haven't had a legitimate franchise player since, I don't know, Chris Webber 20 years ago. And to answer your question, Schemes, because I'm dancing all over the place here, basically I would redraft Luka at 2 for Sacramento because Marvin Bagley III hasn't added an ounce of value to any NBA roster since he's arrived in the league. Actually, you know what? I'll take that back. He's been decent. He's been decent in Detroit. 11 points per game, 6 rebounds. He's better than Nazir Muhammad.
It's funny.
I'll give him that.
Very funny.
But anyway, here, you know what? I'm going to flip this question because I want to ask Mal. Mal, who is the worst top draft pick in the last 10 years? Can you answer that? Do you have an opinion on that one?
Well, that's a tough question. There have been quite a few top 5 draft picks over the past 20 years who haven't panned out as expected. But if I had to pick one, I would have to go with Anthony Bennett, the first overall pick in the 2013 NBA draft. Bennett was hyped up as a potential superstar coming out of UNLV, but he struggled to make an impact during his rookie season with the Cleveland Cavaliers and was eventually traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He He played for a few other teams after that, but never lived up to his potential and is widely regarded as one of the biggest busts in NBA history. It's always tough to predict how a player will perform at the next level, but in Bennett's case, it's clear that he just wasn't cut out for the NBA.
Okay.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom,
Thank you for your question, Schemes. Appreciate you. Quick reminder to High and Low Lives, if you want to leave a question for us to answer on the show, drop a DM on TikTok and More High and Low. Drop a DM on Instagram and Get High and Low. Links in the show notes. Feels like a good time for us to take a break. When we come back, I'm taking a trip to Love Hate Island. We'll be right back with More High and Low. This moment is brought to you by High and Low listeners. This week on the High and Low NBA show, listeners were asked to share their top 5 NBA players who won NCAA championships, national titles. We heard from Schemes from Philly. Schemes from Philly doubled up this week. He had the listener question of the week, and now the top 5. Schemes shared his list of players starting from number 5, Isaiah Thomas. Yes, we know Isaiah won the NCAA championship in '81 with Indiana University, and then he went on to win 2 NBA titles in Detroit. Schemes has Bill Russell at number 4. Russell won back-to-back NCAA titles in 55 and 56 for the University of San Francisco. And then, of course, we all know he went on to win a boatload of titles in Boston as a Celtic. Number 3 for Schemes is Magic Johnson, who won a national title in '79 for the Michigan State Spartans when they beat Larry Bird and Indiana State. Then Magic, of course, would go on to continue his rivalry with Larry Bird and win 5 rings as a star of the Lakers of Los Angeles. Number 2 on Schemes' list is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, formerly known as Lou Alcindor, in the college ranks, where he won 3 straight national titles for UCLA before embarking on his legendary NBA career. And Schemes number 1, and this is getting obvious. It's, of course, none other than Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who won a national title for the North Carolina Tar Heels in '82, and then went on to have the greatest career in NBA history, arguably. Anyway, great list, Schemes. Thank you for sharing. Much appreciated. But let's get back to High and Low.
All right, you guys, what's next?
I'm Ike Amaechi. Welcome back to the program, and welcome back to Love Hate Island, a place where I get to simmer under the hot sun, taking that ocean breeze, espouse my opinions on what I love about the NBA at the moment, what I hate about the NBA right now. Last time I talked about how much I love the parity in the league, and then I transitioned into my dislike of the Ja Morant situation. Won't get into the details right now. I called it dislike. This time I'm calling it hate. On this segment, I'm starting with what I love, though. And I'm loving the emergence of new faces and new competition as the stars of yesterday basically age out. Now, we've had a new crop of top guys doing top guy things, night in, night out. New batch of perennial favorites. In the East, Milwaukee and Boston have positioned themselves as mainstays at the top of the heap, anchored by their stars, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee, and then you got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown in Boston. Now, although a tier below, Cleveland has been able to retool, rebuild from their LeBron years, a roster full of new talent led by Donovan Mitchell, of course, and with similar goals to those LeBron-led Cavs, winning at the highest level. Those are the expectations there. Philly is still a threat, but I don't know, they're led by familiar faces in Embiid and Harden, mostly Harden. Harden is aging out. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic. I'm not sure how many highly productive seasons he has left in the tank, but it's definitely not as many as the aforementioned. Now, in the West, we've got Nikola Jokic's dominance that has placed Denver at the top. I have no reason to believe that we won't see Denver in a similar position for as long as they keep this core intact. Sacramento as I mentioned before, they're winning. It's been a nice surprise this season. But if you ask anyone who's been paying attention the last few years of Mike Brown's coaching career, they would tell you this is no surprise. And Mike Brown, he's the head coach of the Nigerian basketball team, the men's basketball team. But Brown, he's rebuilt the culture, changed the locker room mindset in Sacramento. This is a team that walks into any matchup feeling like they can win. Never mind having a chance to win. They were walked over. They were just the butt of jokes, a basement dweller for years. And it felt like teams didn't feel like they really had to put forth their best when they saw Sacramento on the schedule. Now they have a chance. Now they feel like they can win going into any matchup. There's a difference between those two things. And Mike Brown has made believers of this roster in that philosophy. Now, Ja Morant's off-court issues aside, Memphis, they've become a contender. Team that you can count on to see in the biggest matchups of the season, the playoffs. This is one of the deepest, well-rounded rosters in the association, a team that wins by committee, even though they have what many regard as a generational talent at its core. One of the most impressive aspects of this Memphis team really is the growth we've witnessed. Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bain, Tyus Jones, they've all improved exponentially. They haven't sat on their laurels, so to speak, enjoying the Ja Morant show from courtside. They've been active participants in this resurgence. You all remember the rise and grind Memphis Grizzlies, and this is the hustle and flow version of those Grizzlies, and it's been fun to watch them develop into this contender that we see today. Now, further down the standings in the West, the Dallas Mavericks find themselves in a similar position to Denver and Memphis. They have a generational talent who has changed the trajectory of the franchise. We talked about Luka in the last segment. Luka Doncic is a top 5 NBA player, and he gives the Mavs a chance to win on any given night versus any given opponent. They're not yielding the same results as Denver or Memphis due to a flatter pyramid of talent, if you will. But a player like Luka puts the Mavs in a position to be one player away, similar to their days with Dirk Nowitzki. Further down the standings in the West, you have Minnesota. I like to refer to the Minnesota Timberwolves as the Cleveland Cavaliers of the West, with a similar level of talent, that you see with Donovan Mitchell over there in Cleveland. You've got Anthony in Minnesota. Some might discount Rudy Gobert's impact on Minnesota, but he's still one of the best defenders in the league, a player who offers superior rim protection, same way that Jarrett Allen provides Cleveland with that same protection in the East. And Karl Anthony Towns, can't forget about him, top 15 player, which basically means that he's the 15th best player. When this trio figures out how to play together, there's no reason that they can't be a top 5 seed in the West year in and year out. So now, let me move over to OKC. Oklahoma City Thunder. I love what Sam Presti has done in Oklahoma City. Never mind what Hugo says about the Thunder. He doesn't say it with his chest anyway, so don't believe him. If you take a look at what this team looked like after the Paul George trade, no one thought they would have a chance at staying in the league. Staying in the league, yes. People dismissed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was coming off a decent rookie season. I think he averaged about 11 a game, 5 assists. No one would have predicted this Super Saiyan version of the Canadian, a guy who you can really depend on to give you 30 a night with clutch play. Then they pick up Lou Dort, player who struggles with the shot at times, but he's a defensive monster, and he has that Draymond-like motor and the energy you really find on most contending teams. Like you look at some of the best teams, they have that one player, that motor guy. And he seems to be that for the OKC Thunder. That was a sneaky pickup. Josh Giddey is one of my favorite players to watch. And he's just another coup for Sam Presti. 6'8" point guard out of Australia. Smooth handle, exceptional court vision, just a walking triple-double. I mean, if a franchise is dieting, and watching their wallet and their waist, and they can't afford to fill up on a Luka Doncic, Josh Giddey, well, he's your kale and apple celery lime smoothie. You know, they're not in the same tier. I'm not going to compare Luka to Josh Giddey. They're not in the same tier, but Giddey can give you a version of Luka that few players can. That's just my opinion. Anyway, back to OKC. They also have Chet Holmgren. He's missed the entire season with a foot injury, but he's positioned as a game changer if he can stay healthy. Because foot injuries on a guy that big, that's scary. Anyway, this is the core that puts OKC in the middle of the pack, which says a lot. It says a lot given the fact that most people have grown accustomed to writing them off as a bottom of the barrel, perennial tankathon participant ribbon winner, basement dweller. And I'm not skipping past Phoenix because Devin Booker is special. And I've said this before. The Suns are real. They're the real deal. They made it to the finals. They've positioned themselves to walk back to the finals with KD, but that's if KD can come back healthy and he can stay healthy. But this Phoenix Suns team, they're a mix of new and old faces. So I don't know, they don't completely fit the mold of the teams that I'm describing in this here segment. They're a legitimate contender after spending years in the basement, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see that change. But last week, Sean seemed to be very offended by Booker, so I don't know. I'll leave my son's praise at that. Overall, this is a breath of fresh air because we've been used to seeing LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Think about what the league looked like 10 years ago when the big three in Miami beat KD, Russ, and Harden and the Thunder in the finals to win their second straight title. Think about where we were at that moment. The Knicks had the second best record in the East. Second best record, the Knicks, the New York Knicks. Yes, James Dolan, his Knicks, with scoring champion Carmelo Anthony as their star. The Bucks, the same team that we just described at the top of the heap now, they were under 500 back then. The Boston Celtics, another team that we described as being at the top of the heap right now in the East. Well, at that time, 10 years ago, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce were running on fumes in Boston, ready to leave for Brooklyn. In the West, the Spurs were still in dynasty mode. Lob City was alive and well in LA with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. The Rise and Grind Grizzlies were peaking. Golden State was on the verge of being activated, launched into the stratosphere for the next decade. Kobe and his Lakers were a couple seasons removed from their championship glory, still putting on a show in the Staples Center. You get where I'm going with this. The league looked very different back then. And although some of those faces still linger in the NBA zeitgeist, many of them are no longer at the peak of their powers. They're playing second fiddle to the new school of teams and players. There's a bit of muscle memory on the part of NBA fans that pull these heroes of yesteryear into today's conversations about the best. And it's about time we let it go. Let's just let it go because the next generation, let's just be fair, they've arrived and I'm loving it. I'm going to quickly walk over to the other side of Love-Hate Island before I get into that stuff, into the stuff I hate about this league. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more High and Low. This message is brought to you by High and Low. Exclusive High and Low merchandise is available for purchase in our store. You got to go to vonnabraham.com/store for various designs on high quality premium tri-blend t-shirts. Tri-blends, man, those are my favorite. I hate wearing t-shirts that shrink or fade. These shirts, honestly, man, they'll be your A1 from day one. You'll wear them when you go hoop, when you work out, go to class, chill at home. You can wear them on your casual Fridays at work. I love the quality of these shirts. You can also have a look in our Etsy store for other designs and prints. I'll leave the links in the show notes. You can thank me later. Anyway, let's get back to the program. And I'm back with an apology. That was a little too much love in that last segment. In fact, I spent way too much time on the positive when all you want to hear is the negative, the hate. I know you do. We're running out of time, so let me be as efficient and precise as possible on this side of the island, love-hate island. Listen, I hate the fact that I'm so far removed from college basketball. Right now, we have March Madness. It's fully activated right now. We've already had big comeback wins, exciting upsets by Cinderella teams, clutch plays by guys who will most likely be making similar plays in the NBA years from now. Yet my interest level is at an all-time low. Like, seriously, aside from the fact that, I'm in a pool, I think that has more to do with my competitive gene than anything else. But regardless, this is concerning to me. I was taking stock the other day and it concerned me. I used to be a college basketball fanatic. If Syracuse was on TV, I was watching. If the Wolverines were matched up on a Saturday, that game was on. If the Tar Heels were playing, I'm there. But I was thinking about it, and I think I've aged out of the experience. My interest in the NCAA product peaked in my early 20s when I wasn't so far removed from playing competitively myself in that age demo. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I could still watch and appreciate the game at that level and look past the obvious talent deficiencies because I was younger than the players in those games. I was playing at a lower level than the guys that were playing at the college level. I'm not saying that I'm better than the best college players today. Not me, Mr. I play basketball twice a month. I'm just saying that the basketball I played and watched outgrew the college game, and at a certain point, the players I followed in college, when I was a young boy, they became stars in the NBA. And as the quality of their game improved, I don't know. I think my preferences started to change. My preferences in terms of what I wanted to watch, what I wanted to take in, what I wanted to enjoy. And the best amateur players or NBA prospects, these days, they're not guaranteed to be found in the NCAA anymore. This year, 2 of the top projected draft picks for 2023, that's Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. Well, they're not playing college basketball this year. Wemby's playing in France and pretty much all over the world, while Scoot Henderson's been hooping in the NBA's G League Ignite program. So I don't know. I still tune in to watch the Elite Eight, Final Four, the national championship game, but a full season like before? Nah. But maybe that's the wider trend. I don't know. Maybe the viewership is down. I haven't taken a look at the numbers. Maybe I'm so invested in the NBA that there's no room for college games anymore. I don't know. I can barely keep up with 30 teams in the association as is. I'll definitely be watching the Final Four this year, though, for sure, keeping my eye on the other prospects. At the end of the day, I hate the fact that I'm so far removed from the college game, but I still love the game. I still love basketball, and that's all that matters. So I was going to end it there, but there's one more thing I need to get off my chest while I'm here on Love Hate Island.
You know what? No, because I still hate you, okay?
I hate the biased discourse around the NBA. The emotionally driven opinions that are loosely based on facts and mostly based on how deep they can throw their favorite player or their favorite team. Like, seriously, get the fuck out of your mouth and pay attention to reason. Pay attention to the game. When I'm having a pleasant discussion, some nice conversation about the best players in the game, and someone inserts player X who happens to play for their favorite franchise or happens to be the franchise player on their favorite team, I just want to soak my hand in some virgin olive oil and cuff the back of the neck and just separate the soul from their ridiculous opinion. I swear. I get it. Listen, it's nice to have a rooting interest. It really is. Every good storyline needs a hero. You know, that protagonist. And these players, these teams are your heroes. I understand. But don't let reason and logic leave the chat. You know, we have nothing without reason and logic. Look at Twitter and Facebook. There's a time and place for your NBA crush, preferably in the privacy of your own bedroom in the middle of the night next to some lotion and a box of tissue. But leave it there, please. Stop it. I don't like it. In fact, I hate it. Anyway, you've listened to me rant enough. So
Why the fuck I can't shoot 3-point shots?
that brings us to the end of this episode of High and Low. Thank you very much for listening, tuning in this week. Subscribe to High and Low anywhere you find podcasts. Make us part of your weekly routine. You know where to find us. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Links to those are all in the show notes. Once again, music is by Live at the Enjoy Music Group. That's the music you're listening to right now. Amazing, as usual. You can find Live on Twitter and on Instagram at LYVE. The additional music is by Sonny Rockwell of The Goodness. You can't find Sonny Rockwell anywhere, I promise you. Sound design is by Vonn August. This is a Vonn+Abrahamm podcast, just in case you didn't know. So on behalf of Mal and the rest of the High and Low contributors, I'm Ike Amaechi. Thank you for listening to High and Low, and I'll talk to you next week.